Hello humans. Today I wanted to talk about this guy right here. This is the Walther P38 knife. I do not have a Walther P38 gun because Canada sucks and I have no money. But jokes aside, they are actually very nice firearms as well, but I do not have one on hand. So instead we get to talk about the knife today. The Walther P38 can still be purchased. I got mine secondhand. They retail for in and around 65 Canadian dollars. I've had mine about 6 months now, so I've had quite a bit of experience with it, and I have to say, overall, I like this quite a bit. So let's get into some real quick technical specs. It is over a pound in weight. Let's check actual length right now. So it's just over 6¼ inches long and slightly over a pound in weight, and has a blade height of just over an inch. Blade stock thickness. Getting numbers out of the way quick. I don't know why that's what I want to talk about today, but it seems to be what I want to talk about today. This is going to be a fairly thick blade, and you definitely do feel that. Yeah. It's like 190 thousandths. You've definitely got some blade stock there. And it feels it. This is a very, very heavily tactically inspired knife. It is very good at poking things and pretty okay at slashing things. And everything about its design is designed to highlight that. You've got this like finger notch right here, which you can grab and kind of wrap your index finger around. Makes it for really good poking. It also helps increase the this handle, which is designed to look very much like the Walther P38 firearm. It even has the same style lanyard attachment back there, and overall this whole design is, but in terms of stabbing, you have this really suitable thumb ramp and kind of finger guard here, which means you have phenomenal puncturing power. Despite it being a fairly thick blade, it is swedged the whole way along, and you do have a fairly pokey tip. So in terms of like stabbing stuff, this does a really good job. Genuinely does a really good job of stabbing stuff. Personal preference is going to play a role in how much it matters to you, but for the style of training and experience that I have, this is a very good profile. You have very, very slight recurve, mostly straight edge, designed to be used in a forward or hammer grip. Very poke heavy. You have this almost recurved section up here, which actually gives you tremendous slashing performance in terms of a tactical design, which I quite like. And you do have some jimping up here. Not as much as I would like to do a proper sideways thumb grip. There's a name for this. I don't remember it. But there's a particular name for this style of grip, which is a grip that I have trained in quite a bit. It doesn't work super well on this knife. The handle's a little bit overly round, and despite there being quite a bit of material and texturing here in order to get some traction on, it's just not quite as nice as, in particular, this grip. But even the hammer grip does an extremely good job. You do have some jimping on the blade. It's kind of a chore to get around the guard to this jimping, which meant that I never actually ended up using it. Like training, even general knife tasks, which I'm going to get into as soon as I'm done this tactical section. I never ended up using this jimping, so it's mostly just there for aesthetics as far as I'm concerned. You also have phenomenal retention at the back of the hand. This gives quite a bit of room. Like if I'm right squeezed up against the top of the guard, I have enough room for half another finger. But in most grips, this is actually really nice to wrap my pinky around and give me really, really good control over how the blade reacts and moves, which I quite like. All right, that's kind of all I have to say about the tactical aspects of it. It's heavy. It's very, like, you have a very good force multiplier back here if you need to bash someone with the top of it. The whole thing weighs quite a bit. I think it's pretty damn cool. And I think it does make a nice training and tactical knife. It's not my first choice by any means, but it's definitely in my top 3 out of my personal collection. So to that end, I do quite like it. Now into general stuff and EDC and all that shebang. I love this blade profile. It's not quite my preferred blade profile, which is straight edge and then belly section. I'm not a huge fan of recurves just because I don't love sharpening them. But there's no denying that the recurve is actually really useful in terms of gathering material into a cut. And you do only have a saber height hollow grind. Just to prove it's a hollow grind, what do I have that has a flat edge? These, which I use for grabbing flints. So you do only have like a saber height hollow grind. Scheiße. You do only have like a saber height hollow grind, which isn't the best as far as performance goes in like slicing tasks and the like, but on the day-to-day, it's not too bad. You definitely hit a lot of resistance when you're cutting through thicker material, but there's enough weight in this blade especially that you can power through a lot, and the handle is comfortable enough that you can really just bear down and push through pretty much anything you need to push through, quite frankly. The tips, you have a lot of access to the tip, like it's very easy to use the tip of this knife to get into packages or whatever, which I quite like. And because of the slight recurve, there's a little bit more weight forward, so in a draw cut or something like that, despite the fairly heavy handle, you can see like the balance is like behind your index finger if you're holding this normally. Like it's very butt heavy knife, but because of the way that the edge kind of drops out, it's pretty natural to use in a draw cut, which I myself quite like. It is superbly comfortable. It doesn't have tons of what's it called, design, like 3D design in the side to side, but the up and down profile just fits in the hand exceptionally nicely in a huge variety of grips. Which leads to me carrying this quite a bit more than I would have expected, especially as somebody who doesn't typically carry tactical knives for the sake of carrying a tactical knife. I generally do prefer something more utilitarian, and this does a really good job of it. It's a good size to carry and not, at least where I live, not be overtly problem causing. Like you can carry big knives around here, but once you get beyond about the 6-inch blade length, people do start to look at you a little bit differently. Farming towns are wonderful. But like this size and the shape, absolutely no problem. You have a very simple leather sheath. It's not actually, scratch that. It is not a very simple leather sheath, but you have a very classic looking leather sheath, which I think a lot of people identify with. This is my favorite sheath in my collection. There's one thing about it that I would like to change, and that's it. But overall, this is actually a truly phenomenal sheath. I'm going to get back to the blade in a second, but now I'm talking about the sheath. So it's a belt retention, simple leather loop. You have folded over leather. You've got this added section right here with double stitch leather. There's another patch on the inside that actually corresponds with the bottom of that jimping, just to kind of help like it not wear in as much with time. It'll help it last a little bit longer. And then what I truly love, this is not a good tactical belt sheath, by the way. This is just a sheath that I deeply like. This double retention system. So the knife won't come out. This is about as far as I can get it out. So the knife won't come out unless you pull this tab out and then pop this over, which just means that it's in there really, really good, in my opinion. And it does not want to come out, which I quite like. Like I like a sheath that's going to hold the knife in there extremely well, and this does. This is a little bit easier to do when it's actually on your belt and I'm not trying to do it on the table in front of me, but there you go. The reason this isn't great in a tactical situation, of course, is because it is significantly slower than like a Kydex or something similar. The retention is quite a bit better, and I think that it looks and lasts a lot longer, but it's definitely not as good in a tactical situation as like a Kydex sheath would be. The one thing I would change, I would add a drain hole. I know it's not the most important thing in the world when it comes to leather knives, but I personally like a drain hole, even if it's not the most important thing in the world. I would prefer to have one just for the peace of mind of never having to worry about there being like floating water at the bottom. But there you go. Blade steel is 440C. 440C is a really nice steel, especially in a budget territory. Like I said, this retails for about 65 Canadian dollars. And for that 440C, if well heat treated, and I have no reason to suspect that this is not at least decently heat treated, 440C is nice. It's not the most premium thing in the world. It is by no means perfect, but it is fine. It holds an edge a decent amount. It's quite tough, and it is decently stainless, which is all you can really ask for. I've never actually removed the handles on this guy. That is gross. This is a T7. The only reason I say that's gross is because most things nowadays are either a T8 or a T6 when it comes to knives, especially. So T7 is just a little bit of a weird dimension to be using, but it is by no means the end of the world. Do I have to take both sides off? Probably. Like I said, I've never actually done this. It's going to be interesting to see what's behind there. This knife does not throw well. I have thrown it a couple times, and it's very butt heavy, which just leads to it not having the best flying dimensions, and it's quite heavy. Like, it's not just butt heavy, but it is overall weighty, which can make it more difficult than it needs to be when it comes to throwing and stuff like that. So you can do it if you feel very much the need to, but I would recommend not feeling the need to. There are significantly better knives out there to throw. Is this also epoxied on? This might also be epoxied on. The screws might just be there for decoration, because I'm looking inside this lanyard area and you can see there's something back there, which would be kind of annoying just to have the screws in there for aesthetic purposes, but yeah, it looks like the screws are just in there for aesthetic purposes. I'm seeing more signs of glue and stuff. That's kind of too bad. I was hoping I'd be able to open this up and take a look inside, but you get what you get, I guess. I find it very comfortable in my hands. If you have hands that are significantly smaller than me, it's not going to be great. And because of the fact that this is a very prescriptive, at least index finger point, there's not a ton that you can do if your hands do not fit in that finger. Like, if your fingers are too big, there's nothing you can do. And if your fingers are significantly too small, where like you want 1.5 or even 1 3/4 of your 1 3/4 of a fingers into the index finger area, it's not going to be particularly comfortable, just because it is a hard point there. Now for me, this doesn't matter because it fits my hand quite nicely. Not perfectly, but quite nicely. For some size comparisons real quick, here we have it next to the Civivi Chevalier, and there it is, the Wee Banter. As you can see, it is quite a bit bigger than either one, which makes a lot of sense, being a fixed blade and all that. And then here we have it next to Buck 110. And again, quite a bit bigger than the Buck 110. In terms of handle space, the amount of handle space you have is slightly smaller than the Buck 110. Not significantly, but just a little bit smaller than the Buck 110s. So that should give you kind of an indication of how much grip space you're going to have. And, sorry, my Zippo is not where it normally is. There we are. And here we have it next to a Zippo. No real point doing thickness of the pivot area, but you can see it's a little bit thicker than the Buck 110 in the handle, quite a bit more rounded. I can't sing this thing's praises as far as like comfort goes enough. A big part of that is absolutely the weight of it, but I really like holding this knife. This is a very, very comfortable knife in my opinion. It does a lot of tasks really, really well. Feather sticking, I had no problem with. Some carving tasks, I had no problem with. I didn't baton with it. I can't imagine it would have a problem batoning, but it's not something that I do very often, so I'm going to be honest, I haven't actually tried it with this particular knife. It is very much designed to look like a P38. There should be a P38 on screen next to it at this precise moment. Editing these, you're going to love that. But it does look quite a bit like the grip of a P38. Exceptionally, exceptionally comfortable. I really like this knife. I think that if you have the opportunity to pick one up, especially secondhand at a discount, jump on it. The sheath is easy to carry, quite comfortable. It'll give you a lot of different feelings, a lot of different little things that you can try out for the first time. Not least of all is the weight of it. Like, this is a heavy knife, and I'm somebody who likes a heavy knife, so for me this isn't a problem. But there are a lot of knives out there that are designed to be very lightweight, to carry very, very minimally, non-problematically. This ain't that, Chief. This thing weighs like I said, it's over a pound in weight, right? Man, I like this. So yeah, if you come across one, especially secondhand at a discount, but even like if you're just looking for something particularly tactical that does a really good job in an EDC, all tasks you could do in a day situation, Walther P38 knife. I really, really like it. I think it's very well done. Yeah, stay safe and have fun out there. Peace.